Я скажу несколько слов вводных. Не знаю, кто был на нашем первом докладе про финансовые сервисы, может быть, услышит что-то во второй раз, но в целом это все равно интересно, и мы у себя в позитиве про это проговариваем каждый раз, и вот Пахадейс это уже 13-й раз. Значит, идея Пахадейса в позитиве — это изначально встреча пиджаков и футболок, как ребята называли. То есть когда речь про то, чтобы пересечь позитив, это всегда в футболках,
meeting jackets with t-shirts.
Заинтересованные ребята в кибербезе именно в качестве потребителя.
So cybersecurity people are not exactly tech people. They know about security, and PH Days has always been about giving them a space to talk to each other. And it's for the first time, well, PH Days has always been about techs talking to techs, and CyberSec talk to CyberSec, and IT talk to IT. Last year, when we, for the first time, created an open festival of PH Days at the Gorky Park, it was kind of a city event, and we decided to be as open as possible, families, children, everything. And we saw that, a lot of things we saw, but one such particular thing was that a lot of people are interested in business-to-tech talks about cybersecurity. And actually, last year, C-level guys told us we actually would like more discussions on in a language that we understand, in business language. And we decided to have such debates on 4 topics which we consider important, and not just for our company, but for the entire industry as well.
Рост прозрачности и эффективности. Вот. И сегодня трек, о котором хотели поговорить, это про
And the track we would like to talk about today is transparency,
с одной стороны,
efficiency. We will talk about the transparency of positive business, but I think this is a topic that's interesting far beyond a particular company. Everybody knows that we are a publicly traded company, and we do treat our transparency seriously. To us, transparency is more than just, having a good image. It's really a boost to our market capitalization, because within the company we start to understand better what the priorities are, and we try to get this understanding into the head of every one of 2,600 employees. We understand that we need to share our thoughts with our shareholders, with investment bankers, with the professional communities, with the broader public.
И на вендорскую компанию, коей Позитив является, смотрел.
Positive is a vendor company, of course, but we want the world to see how things work within our company.
Логика, которой живем внутри. Понятно, внутри она
we want to
и так далее, но всему сразу там вовне научить каждый.
Reach out to the broader public, to our shareholders. We have more than 200,000 shareholders. We want to reach out with the topics that we discuss. We want our shareholders to understand and share our vision for the future, the journey that we are taking, and more specifically, the objective that it's helping us reach is to make sure that a company is evaluated not just by market forces. Market forces are volatile. We want to make sure that the fair value of our company, comprised of a lot of elements, of course, that fair value should be quantifiable. We need to learn how to quantify our fair value, and we need to create a strategy in which the growth of our capitalization would be driven by each particular element. So we will have a short presentation, 3, 4, 5 slides maybe. Anastasia, my colleague, will talk to you about what is transparency in positive ways, what is industrial statements, industrial reports, and we also invited several experts from investment banks.
Сегодня будет представлен руководитель SEO нашего аудитора Влад Погуляев, который поделится своим мнением вообще, нужно это.
Including Vlad Poguляев, who is head of our auditor, who will actually tell us maybe we don't need to think about that once we have the Russian accounting standards, once we have IFRS and so on. So my colleague Anastasia Dugatkina, who's responsible for financial planning, controlling, internal controls, external controls, and she's actually the co-ideologist of what we are doing with our transparency. So she will tell us everything that there is to tell. Now, this QR code, if you follow this QR code, you will go to a chat bot. You choose Pulsar, this room, and you ask the questions. And when we start the panel, everyone will see those questions, and we will answer the questions that you ask online. Nastya, go ahead, please. Hello, everyone. Andrei has told you about our ideology. I want to stand just for you to see everything. I will be more specific. I will be telling you about the matrix, about our statements, about our reports, and why we chose those matrix and how we interpret them. First of all, this is our fundamental financial statement form. It looks like the classic P&L in IFRS, but this is management statements. NIC is net income without capitalization. This is a hybrid between P&L and cash flow. So this form looks like P&L. However, it is the closest thing. It is the closest to net cash position of the company at a particular point. So NIC is calculated from the offload. So this is a management metric. It is not the same as sales in IFRS. So offload is a little different from IFRS sales. It includes the VAT as well, because it tells us more about the overall amount of business, but offload does not include all the corrections over several periods. So in IFRS, you have to recognize sales at the moment when you get the money on account, but in offloads, you recognize it right away. And all the deliveries not paid for until the 31st of May on the next reporting period are not recognized in the previous reporting period. And also, it includes rebates, bonuses for volume of sales to our partners, and so on. It does not. So, we do not subtract them from deliveries or offload, but we recognize them elsewhere. And we have another metric, is the gross margin on deliveries. It's a good metric for benchmarking our companies with our colleagues. This metric is close to sales. However, it does not include rebates. Some companies demonstrate rebates in a specific statement, some don't. So the gross margin from deliveries actually creates a pretty good benchmark. So the biggest difference between deliveries and gross margin or gross profit is VAT and all other external direct costs. The next important metric is EBITDA. It is very much like the classic EBITDA. So the difference is that EBITDA is calculated from deliveries. So the difference between sales and deliveries are applicable here. And in the management statements, we do not capitalize any assets. So all intangible assets, all fixed assets, all So in the management accounts, we recognize this all in the same reporting period in which all of that is merged. And all that brings us to NIC, which is net profit net profit in management accounts. So it does not include depreciation. And why we think this metric is good? Because it's easy to calculate. It is very close to the net cash position, and it is very clearly tied to the dividend policy. We look at NIC and we very clearly understand how much dividend the company is going to pay later this year. That's all about our management accounts. The next topic is on the evaluation of our products. This is a topic which is always important to a vendor. Classically, in IFRS, intangible assets are recognized by their direct costs. So everything that we paid for the development of a specific product should go into the evaluation of that product. This characteristic might be good because it gives you some kind of a fundamental, but for vendors it is not exactly relevant, because vendors' margin, on the one hand, can be very high, but on the other, it's important to understand that vendors reuse certain technologies within other products. So we have developed one product, it's evaluated like this, and we took a piece of that product, and on the basis of that piece, we did a different product. So answering a question how much that new product costs, if you just look at direct costs, of course, this will be a severe underestimate. So we answer a question, how much would we pay for this software to be developed from scratch? So this is how some people evaluate this. The third method is, of course, the standard method, which includes the profit from the sales of the product. However, we don't think that it is absolutely objective, because it includes a lot of subjective and judgmental information. The next important topic is benchmarking against other companies who do the same business. Arena and Astra we have representatives here in this debate. They've been doing the same thing that we are doing. And we think that this methodology can give you a very clear and understandable benchmark. Methodologically, they are calculated pretty well to have a more or less fair comparison. We are talking to Selectel and Diasoft. There are certain stories that have to be interpreted in the right way because these companies are in a little bit different business. Now, where to find industrial standard and how to get it applied to you? Well, the industrial standard that we're offering, you can get it following the QR code. There are two files, the text of the standard, which you can read, of course, and the second file is the Excel spreadsheets in which our IFRS matrix are transformed into our matrix. Delivery, gross profit from delivery, NIC, and EBITDA. We also think that it would be right to create an independent platform to store industry data. And this is what our colleagues from Sberbank helped us with. Biosystem Sber Navigator is a system in which we create this dashboard with industry data. If anyone wants to add their data, you can write to the guys from Sber Navigator and they will help you with that. That's all from my side.
Я еще несколько слов скажу.
Just several more words on top of this topic about industrial standards, transparency, and why we think it's important. Inside the company, we always think how to quantify our capitalization in terms of our account, in terms of our management accounts. Last year, our cap was 133 billion rubles. Now we are 200 billion rubles. But we're always asking ourselves, is it a fair figure? Do we imagine it or is it something real? And this is why we have introduced this idea of transparency, of getting this transparency piece by piece, because we want to manage our fair value. We want to manage our growth. We have a strategy. This strategy gives us certain priorities, whether those are right priorities. Of course, this looks and sounds pretty simplistic. That is true. But I think if we put together several elements, products, so a fair value is a function of certain things. The first such thing is our portfolio of products. It's 25 plus already, and some products are in the pipeline and so on. So our product portfolio is the first variable. The second variable is the territory of our sales. Today, it's Russia, and we are making first steps outside of Russia. And if we have a broader footprint, so your DCF is growing, and that means to us that we need to invest something back into our products, some complementarity, some packaging, bundling, creating products, universal in terms of selling it in Russia, selling it in Latin America, and so on. So this will shape our priorities. Branding issue. Branding issue is not a very simple issue. So we have a good brand, we think. We are a pioneering brand. We are leaders in effective cybersec and so on. So this is something that contributes to our brand. The brand contributes to our fair value. We also stimulate investment into a new generation of people who are interested in cybersec, who want to invest into this industry. We want to solve the issues that are yet unsolved and so on. And of course, PH Days is part of that story. Team. Of course, we are not talking about the team specifically, but everybody knows that 200 and 2,600 people, 3/4 of them are engineers and technologists and so on. These are people who contribute to our products, and these are people who solve problems and resolve issues for our customers. And of course, the market needs to see whether we are good at generating new businesses, looking at adjacent issues, because cybersecurity goes together with IT. One of our products is far beyond cybersec, to tell you the truth. So looking at all these metrics that Nastya has described, and exposing all these metrics to the broader audience is just a call for, looking at our company from outside and thinking together. We don't want to, masquerade our internal issues with great IFRS statements. We know all those stories. And if Astra, Arena Data, and others follow this standard, we want this standard. This is a short document, just 10 pages. We want to transform this standard into something that could launch a great debate on the market about which parts of corporate transparency could be added to this. We're open to adding certain things to the standard. The fundamental idea behind this standard is how to evaluate a complicated business, vendor's business, how to choose the matrix that will show you the real picture of company's health, whether the company is moving in the right direction, whether the company is good at boosting its fair value, and so on. Our product portfolio is already being evaluated as part of DCF. This is not mandatory financial statements, but we still disclose it. And in the end of the previous year, it was 87 billion rubles with the overall market cap of 133 billion by the end of the previous year. So we want to look at how much of a multiplier we get with this particular product. Right now, we have the multiplier of 1.5. So our fair value as a company is 1.5 fair value of our product portfolio. Today, it's just us. But maybe if we collect enough statistics, a non-public company which would like to become public, it can look at this standard and it can look at this portfolio, and they might have an idea how much they will be worth when they become public. We don't mean to say that this is the only way to look at this. We may be wrong. And we are calling upon everyone. This is why we're calling upon everyone to look at this very conservative area from an innovative point of view. Because if we want, I think, if we want to develop our vision of the business, how your business should look like, how to calculate its fair value, we are open for any discussions on this, and next year maybe we will release a second version of the standard, and we would not, we would not like this standard to become defensive. If we come together with our colleagues within the industry, and if colleagues come up with some relevant proposals, we will be open to considering those proposals. Now, I'd like to ask our panelists to find your seats on the stage. I'd like to ask you to introduce yourselves first. We want everyone to understand how great a paneling team we have, and then we will have a debate about whether this story is something necessary or not. Okay, who wants to be the first? Whoever wants to be the first, they will be the first. So tell us a couple of words about yourself. Okay. We are Arena Data. We are an IT company. We make and sell database management systems. We are one of the leaders on this market. And you are CFO. I'm Islam Paguliaev. I'm a shareholder and CEO of Unikurna, one of the Russian auditors, and I'm chairman of the expert board of the Moscow Stock Exchange. I'm also responsible for Corfin and internal audit in a large public company. Okay, you are our auditor.
Добрый день, коллеги. Меня зовут Елена Бородкина.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elena Borodkina. I'm CFO of Astra. Very happy to see everyone, and I'd like to thank Positive for the invitation. Astra is a vendor of infrastructure software. We talk to Positive. Well, actually, this is a family friendship between us and Positive. So we are happy about this initiative. We are supporting this initiative, and we will continue on this. Sergey Libin, Chief Analyst of Gazprom Bank, responsible for technology sector. Vladimir Bespalov has been in market analysis and in stock issuer analysis for more than 20 years. I previously worked for VTB Capital, and now I continue analyzing markets and companies. These guys always ask the most challenging questions, and we are trying to answer those questions in the most transparent way. So these are the most challenging guys on the market. Okay, so the first question we are asking to ourselves, and I'd like to ask you to comment on this. Do you think it is the right idea, fundamentally? People have GAAP, people have IFRS for a reason. Should a company disclose the matrix that it thinks it should disclose? Because we disclose our management accounts. However, we do reconciliation with all the classic financial statements. So do you think we're doing the right thing?
Давайте я начну. Я сразу скажу, независимо от того,
Let me start. Irrespectively of what my comments are about, I do support that Positive tries to think of something new, tries to make this company as open as possible, to make this company as understandable. I have looked at 3 or 4 industry reports about CyberSec, and all of them were forecasting the future of the market in all directions. The same goes for database management and so on.
Не только на чисто финансовые результаты, но и на анализ рынков, это было бы вообще замечательно.
Okay, and I think it would be a great idea if all these results that we have in terms of management, we could have in financial statements. Your matrix they look pretty good, they are pretty straightforward, and well, I've seen a lot on the market. I see that you do that because you really think about your transparency, not because you want to show that your value is more than what your real value is. Right? You're not hyperinflating yourself. But it's important to understand who your target audience is. And when you talk about fair value, different people think that different value is fair. We analyze fair values of companies for minority shareholders. And of course, this is a different appraisal than what core shareholders see, because they have better understanding of the prospects of the company, they have better understanding of their internal position and so on. So looking at these matrix that you're offering, it's important. Why we love audited financial statements? because an auditor comes from the outside and they sign up for whatever is written on this piece of paper. I confirm this is true. Management accounts, they are a little bit tricky because they are a little bit judgmental. Why do you expose this particular part? Why do we believe you? I think, well, Positive tries to do things sincerely, and most issuers do the same, but a minority shareholder will be forgiven for asking a question. Who confirms this figure? The company just says that it is so, and should I believe this is so? The second important point from the point of view of minority shareholders, they look at a lot of issuers on the market, and there are certain standard things that people are used to: net income, sales, EBITDA, and so on. And new metrics, they always are not very understandable. So you have two statements: management accounts and IFRS. And matrix may be different. So the sales versus your gross profit from deliveries. Kind of the same thing, but not exactly the same thing. And people start to look at it very, very suspiciously. Now, what people will be able to tell themselves about your company when they look at your matrix? A lot of people say EBITDA, but not exactly EBITDA, but corrected or adjusted EBITDA. And you offer NIC or you offer EBITDA. Things like looks like a classic thing, but it's EBITDA minus capitalized costs or whatever it is. But even if you take net income is different in different businesses. For example, Elena and I have discussed the depreciation of financial guarantees. For Astra, this is not a monetary metric, but it is very important because it has a big impact on the net income. So you need to know the fundamentals as a minority shareholder to correct, to make this internal adjustment or correction. Of course, when you do this correction for capitalized costs, this really is a door opener to understanding your business. Actually, we understand what are your direct costs. You have to pay your developers. How do you take account of your fixed assets? That's a little bit more of a tricky story. This is a great initiative. You need to move in that direction. You need to work with the community, maybe engage companies who do kind of the same thing, but not exactly the same thing, who don't only pay to their developers. So overall, I do support this, but we will have to think and look at this very, very, very closely.
Моментов зацеплюсь, там сразу попробую
Can I kind of
как вот мне кажется, на самом деле хорошие моменты подсвечиваются в части чего? Есть какие-то проблематики, которые вы отдельно с каждой компанией, там, по крайней мере, даже из нашей индустрии обсуждаете. Здесь предложение, на самом деле, обсуждать вместе. На самом деле, вот есть там проблематика финансовой гарантии. Может, у нас не так ярко она выглядит, но мы с удовольствием, на самом деле, обсудим, там, я не знаю, следующие какие-то подходы, прокинем там что-то общее, и на самом деле для вас в том числе решим проблематику,
financial statements form, we will be able to come to kind of a metric that everyone would accept, and it would make the entire business understandable to you. Of course, not many companies want to move in that direction, but those who want to move in that direction, I think they will support us. The next thing is audited statements versus non-audited statements. Trust in a matrix should be so high that it should be regarded as something reliable.
Здесь мы пока понимаем, что, наверное, во-первых, описание методологии, да, которое является там такое там вот четкое, понятное и без каких-то вопросов про инвариации, там подход это может трактоваться по-разному, поэтому мы все по-разному. Вот поэтому мы решили выложить первый раз это на бумаге и показать в паблик. Вот говорим, вот так, и все.
So we decided
Понятно,
to
что там, мы
put this on
можем это дальше
paper,
там, во времени
and
там,
sure, we can do it
скорректировать,
as
если
time
мы
goes
считаем,
on. We
что
can
не
correct it
совсем
if we'll
изначально
believe that
правильно
this
или
is
не
not
полностью
quite
логично.
right. Maybe
Вторая история, что
it does not
важно,
follow the
мы для
logic.
себя решили,
And
что
the
мы
second
начнем все
thing,
эти
we
метрики
have decided that
показывать
we
в
are
нашей
going to
аудитной
take all
книжке.
those
Понятно,
metrics
что
and we
это
want to show
не
it
про
in this kind of
аудированные
audit book.
показатели, но
It is
как
not like
минимум аудитор
audited
это
sort of
фиксирует
indicators,
как
but
метрики,
at
на
least our
которых
auditors are going
компания
to
размышляет,
put it
принимает
down as
решения и,
metrics,
соответственно,
like
там оценивает
which
какие-то
company uses to
внутренние
make
риски,
decisions,
там, куда
and
нам дальше
they
двигаться.
evaluate
Во-вторых,
their
мы
internal
показываем
risks of
ребятам,
how to
аудиторам
move forward.
реконсилиацию между
And
там
also
классическими
we
методами, которые
show our
проаудированы, там,
auditors,
непластичные. И вот
reconciliation
эта
like
консистентность там
classic, non-classic
подходов из периода в
methodology,
период.
and
Ну,
it's
то есть,
about how
ну,
to be
прекрасно
consistent
понимаешь, что
between
если там
different
в прошлом
periods,
году мы считали не так, а в этом так,
and
мы вот прям взяли и
if
говорим,
last
мы
year
хотим
we did
ту и ту
one
цифру,
kind of
параметр
math,
методологии, нас
this year
остановит.
we did
И мы
something
это, со
else,
своей
we
стороны,
are
опять
going to be
же, считаем
stopped.
там
And
некой
again, we
страховкой для
believe
нас,
that
для
it's going to
там
be like sort
ребят,
of like
которые
insurance
также
policy
используют
for
эти
us and for
стандарты
those who will
и
be
эти
using
метрики
these
там в будущем.
standards
Ну,
and
аудитор
metrics
там
in the
всегда
future.
старается
An
максимально
auditor
полно там и
will
не
try
предвзято
to
как-то
provide
посмотреть
complete
на
information
картинку. Ну и вообще в
and
целом
take
мы же,
an
конечно,
unbiased look.
придумали все это не то чтобы с нуля.
You know, we came up with all of that. It is not
В
like from
разных
scratch
индустриях их
because
немного
there are
примеров.
some
Но
industrial
вот одна из
standards in different
точек опоры,
industries.
которая там нам
And
нравится, мы
one
про
of
нее
such a
много
reference
рассказывали,
point
это
we've
ИСАЛИ, да, там 100 лет
used
существует.
use
Стандарт
Ali, something like that.
управления
It's a standard of managing hospitality industry. I mean, the managerial reporting in hotel industry. If you come to any small, mid-size, or big hotel network like Hyatt or whatever, they show you this special standard which has been around forever, and there is a board which says, okay, this standard tells you or shows you right metrics which will be good for hotel industry, for hospitality industry. And if they're not healthy, you can see it right away. And, you know, analysts can see it and shareholders can see it. Yeah, anybody else would like to share your opinion, please go ahead and take the microphone. I would like to add something. You know, after Vladimir, it's hard to add anything, but on a concept level, I really share this approach that you are trying to marry this responsibility. I mean, to draw P&L closer to cash flow. If you're a minority shareholder, it's important. You're looking at like how much money will be left over for dividends because you care about dividends. And if your dividends are tied up to NIP, this is a good thing, I believe. And the other perspective is that probably, yes, this kind of NIP leap will be different with everybody. Even the presentation that you've shown us, there were some different companies like Silical, and probably they have less capitalization, less expenses for development, but more not physical assets. And I think it will be a recurring indicator. And probably they have higher capex maintenance than yours. So I guess there is not much relevance between you and them. But if we decide to expand this whole like a sector or industry, I mean the spectrum of companies we're looking at and we would like to apply this kind of unified standard, probably we need to come to such a situation when we have certain metrics which you guys do not have, but maybe it will be relevant for other companies, and you use a different set of metrics. Probably this whole thing is going to balance itself, but I think it's also a right approach that when IFRS, international reporting standards, that is, will be closer to your cash flows and shareholders will have a say in what will happen. This is my perspective. Yeah, I also want to share my perspective. I believe that it's important for analysts case, I mean, those people who are helping us to communicate with investors, and they give us sort of independent view, it would be great if they would be proactively contributing into these standards, because you also do some adjustments, right? You look at reporting standards, you say, this is not right for us, this is not relevant, and this is great. So you're doing some adjustments. And by the way, I think this would be great to see what you would like to have. And also, on a regular basis, like in each quarter in your reporting, you'd be able to see those metrics which you find interesting. The second thing is that, yes, we also add into our audited report like a non-IFRS metrics, because those, it makes sense, like A plus B minus C, it kind of all makes sense. So I believe that it's quite a transparent tool and methodology. And in addition to EBITDA, we plan to add some kind of shipments for Q1 into this audited reporting, and maybe we'll also include into it some additional metrics which will be relevant to what we do. Another thing I would like to add is that IFRS reporting standard is becoming less and less intensive. Sometimes myself and auditors, we have internal discussions like, it's a nonsense. Like, why do you do that? And they say, yeah, we also have this like pain points and this kind of headache. All kind of, stands like rents and financial guarantees in IFRS, and it doesn't make sense. Like, why do you have it in these reporting standards? Like, a lot of stuff. And shipments and revenue, this kind of a time distributed mechanisms. And sometimes it's hard to explain to top management why we have this revenue, why we distribute it across different periods. It is not intuitive, it doesn't make any sense, no proportions in this reporting kind of aspect. And we also try to make some adjustments and corrections. So I believe it's a right perspective. Maybe we have to break it down by vendors. If they have some hardware, we can also add some rules, and it will be more comfortable for everyone. I want to protect international financial reporting standard, Looking back at my career when I first started as an auditor, I remember there is like an I-form, and actually, whenever you look into any metrics as a part of the IFRS, and it looks like something is wrong with it, internally we begin to raise this kind of red flag, and we go to talk to business about the substance of this measure, and then also talk with our auditors colleagues. And I want to say that if this metric makes sense, if it is sensible, auditors usually try even to give you a solution of how to show it better, like internal, like in positive company, we used to calculate revenue in one way, then we spoke with company and with the auditors, we said, this is how we do business. We have a shipment, and after this shipment, we never accept any returns. And auditors said, yeah, it makes more sense. Probably in your positive technology company, you can disclose it in your reporting, but basically it's a good approach. And then when you try to approximate this IFRS and kind of managerial logic, it's better for everyone. So on one hand, international reporting systems like more like average indicators, but on the other hand, we have a practical experience of tens of thousands of companies from different industries, and mostly this standard is like is better, but sometimes you have to just make distinctions. Can you give your perspective, Slava, as an auditor? How do you see us? How do you look us? Because sometimes we get impression that we give you a lot of headache. IFRS is not set in stone if you look back at how it was first developed. This was the case, like a company or business would build something new, they would see different options, and probably they were like mutually conflicting, and then after a certain time, it would become a standard. So a process which is happening right now when a business is trying to come up with a different or complemented kind of reporting, it is happening elsewhere in the world because standards are always a little bit behind the real need of business. It happens because market communicates with investors and users and auditors themselves and those who are writing standards. In Russia, this process, it looks like it's, because of we're sort of a little bit isolated. This process is slowing down because we've decided to apply international standards, and now again, kind of late, we're using a different set of international standards. So those Russian companies within Russia, they're trying to improve the reporting. And secondly, international reporting is becoming much more integrated. You introduce some non-economic metrics and you measure, like, how do you audit those measures? And these are open questions. Maybe not through classical audit, but maybe through other ways of confirming those like non-financial statements. And you are in line with global trends. And I want to say, not as an auditor right now, because my friends from invest banks, they gave us quite a precise perspective, like pros and cons of your managerial indicators. But I believe that yes, it's a big pro. It's a big advantage. Why? Because, well, let's see at your pool of your investors. Most of your investors would be individuals. Some of them are also your company's employees or partners even. And usually, most of your investors, whenever they would buy shares of their positive heart, they would vote with their heart, not with their brains. And some of them read some reports, and most of them just watch some bloggers on YouTube. In Russia, we have a huge problem right now because this, private person, voting with their heart, and heart is not always reliable source of information. So they do not really understand some fundamental indicators and fundamental companies' valuations. They, catch on some kind of hyped up ideas and they invest and then buy and sell. So these guys are running around the market and they sort of do not help companies' IPOs and capitalizations. People just make quick money with the IPO, then they immediately sell their shares for the quick buck and run elsewhere. So to make a company sustainable in promoting their company, in promoting their business, and educating their investors about how to read this company. And this is also happening when you introduce a different methodology. They could be a subject for discussion, but it's important also to involve investors into analyzing the company. And that you do that being like a pioneers on the cybersec market and also on the new IPO companies. It's super helpful, and we welcome that. And if we go back to this formula, I believe it's your presentation. If you go to slide number 5, please, in your presentation.
Вы начинаете очень важную дискуссию, и которую, безусловно,
I think you started a very important discussion, which we have to keep up with our investors and the markets. Like I mentioned, some of them are your employees, of how this function works. Like the value of the company depends on the large number of indicators. And while we put in the presentation back up, I think the valuation of the company is a function of different things. Slide number 5, please. It's a product portfolio, it's a company's brand, this would be also the company's team, and some prospects for the company's future growth. And another important component right here is like others. You have this like a pillar others. if your company, like how do you evaluate people? People are not asset. I mean, your employee can quit tomorrow, right? And what can they do is also a big question. So your team demonstrates that your team can show high initiative and transparency, and which is a good signal for investors, of course, and both for your company and for the whole industry. I also welcome and celebrate your company because Russian IPO market is quite interesting. Whenever you cannot disclose part of information, even any public, like a spaghetti factory, so to speak, being afraid of potential sanctions, they would use this clause not to disclose some of the information. Russian IT companies, they were super transparent, trying to evoke trust and attention. And your efforts in building standards is also one element of emphasizing your transparency. And this is also an element of a clear system of corporate governance. And basically, for the business community, transparency is always like a hard burden to carry, because the less transparent you are, the easier it is. And when the company is emphasizing and say, hey, we're so transparent, and they discuss about it, it draws attention to itself, such a company basically is publicly testing a quality of their corporate management. And by undergoing many tests, they improve their internal culture and also increase investors' trust, involving them in their own business and whatever they do. So I guess the main point of my presentation right now is that we welcome your work with the public market and with individual investors and private citizens, which definitely I believe they are not qualified enough to be able to work with companies reporting, read companies reporting, but they're trying to be better. And if company trying to involve private investors, individual investors in analyzing what the company does, they help these investors to be loyal, because they'll be seeing you as a leader and will be staying with you. And when a company number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will come to the IPO, they will not leave you. They will not run back to this like a new hot company. So in this way, you are working for the future of your company. As for the quality of these indicators, I'm an auditor, and I can say that it's easy to calculate them, to audit them. Of course, the big value for you is that some of these indicators you can calculate much faster than your whole reports. So it makes sense that for you, managing your own company by reporting by financial indicators, it's your business process. And sometimes, it is not like you get your report like 6 months later because you have to show it to the market. But the company is managed like differently. It is also very important to have it in real life, not for the sake of reporting only. That's it with me. Thanks a lot. And as for the formula, I want to say a couple of words, but this conversation is quite rich in hands. We are also going to be speaking today about risk management, and it is not a classic approach to risk management. There is a notion of unacceptable operational event, which is largely correlated by unacceptable events in cybersecurity, and one of such events is losing a key personnel, key staff. This would be 100 guys because of the nature of the business, it's quite specific. And whenever we speak about a team, it's a part of the fair value. We have clear understanding that our non-conventional approach to LTI, that our case about the additional share issue in the company, positive technology, should be managed by the owners. It's actually a mitigation plan for our team. team. And we say, okay, the fair value of the team is derived from the value of the company. So for us, it's like a super important, and we're trying to hedge ourselves. We understand that today you can do pen testing and come to some key guys with the offer and say, hey, you want to leave positive technologies? We want to retain them in our company, and through the ideology, co-ownership, and let them to do some interesting things and some other motivation tools. Yes, we want to be transparent inside out, and we have to worry that we're fine, and we are thinking out of the box to be able to solve our, purpose, which is to boost companies' value and growth. Anatoly, can you please tell us about your opinion from Arena Data? You guys have not been long, or you guys want to go to IPO. A decision has not been made, but if you'll go to IPO, what is your perspective? Well, see, as a matter of fact, I guess an industry standard is there. All the companies are disclosed in their reporting. They are not limited themselves to the IFRS. They have some correlated indicators by EBITDA and all these things. Going back to IFRS reporting, a company can select between different approaches, more and less aggressive approaches by cost, capitalization, or revenue. And these standards enables them to compare different companies between themselves. One example is in Arena Data company. We are very conservative about the cost capitalization. Basically, we do not have it. And whenever we look into IMDAC, we can compare ourselves with Astra and Positive Technologies and you name it. So we're all for it, and it is something which will make business much more transparent. Thanks. Thank you. Andrei, may I try to be a little bit provocative here? Because you are developing industry standards, but you have a very non-conventional staff motivation program. How do you fit your motivation program into these industry standards? Yeah, I'll comment on this. Actually, everything we're testing, speaking about our commercial products, our CEO, Dennis Baranov, he loved this like a dog fooding. I mean, you first have to try your product and then give it to the world. We want to share it with the world. And speaking about motivation system, all in all, we had some internal discussions, and we know that it's actually some step towards that basically within the PT company, our company, in a venture format, you can keep the tech guys comfortable and entrepreneurs comfortable, who by investing in realizing their dream, they can be like a co-owner of the company, which will be comparable to the remuneration of the startup guy outside of the company, except there are no risks. What I'm trying to say that basically in this non-conventional stimulus plan, it's about growth of company and building something new. We're trying to disrupt the situation here. And to the large extent, it's about expanding our product business. What I'm trying to say is that we know and we believe that this approach would be an investment into growing our portfolio, which will impact the fair value of the company, meaning that this is the market cap. Speaking about our salaries and wages, whenever we hire people, we give them salaries, and by the year's end, they get some like a year-end bonus. It's a classical thing. And then, in addition to that, we look like not forward but backward, because in our opinion, to be able to come up with something like disrupting, you cannot do it at will. You cannot just write scope, technical references for a new product, which would which cover
функционал, там, принципов работы.
its functionality, its principles, and so on. So all in all,
Все, что касается
we are moving towards like a motivation system. We want to make it long term. We want to make it boosting our product portfolio and boosting our capitalization. So this capitalization is definitely going to be shown as a capitalization in managerial statements. How the IFRS and the Russian reporting system is going to interpret it, we are staying in touch with those who are professionally working with our auditors. But basically, the final point, we see that everything has to be capitalized, and it has to be capitalized also in our balance sheet. That company is also becoming more expensive. I mean, when we do re-evaluation of our product portfolio in 2023, we wanted also to put it in the balance. Unfortunately, IFRS standards don't let us do that. We spoke with some people, with auditors, like international auditors, and we know that Russian auditors and international ones are saying, no, you cannot do that, because it's like a Pandora box. If you put in your balance re-evaluations of the non-tangible assets, it's not going to be great for the market and for the analyst. This is what we do. Andrei, may I also give a comment if we still have time? It's just Vladislav's idea about the current composition of an investor base. Yes, we do a lot of private investors, and not all of them looking deeply into balance sheet and trying to understand what company is doing. And this is why I think that your company and many other companies will be a part of this standard eventually. They have additional responsibility to show to their investors. I mean, for them, it's going to be the main number. They will write it in Telegram channels and elsewhere. People just write something and they will not go deeper. So, whatever you want to show in your reporting, you have to keep in mind that this is exactly the number and indicators which everybody will look at. Another thing, regarding this slide number 5, when you say about different components of market value, I think that there is some kind of overcomplication, because brand and team, I believe, to some extent, it's a sunk cost. I mean, it has already been put into those products which you have on the market in those DCF model. I mean, in the future discounted cash flows. So for me, it's a question: should you re-evaluate them once again, and maybe it's something extra? Yeah, this idea about the overlapping of these different ideas and entities. Yes, we know about that, but we're trying not to simplify what has not to be simplified, because products, team, and brand, you can do different focus for them. And we were thinking not so much about the formula, but about the content of the formula. And we were thinking about, can we single out each element? For example, we have a product portfolio, one product, we sell it, and it can live outside of the company's boundaries. Next, let's take a brand. Let's say, let's do away with the product portfolio, but take a brand of any of our, another company which is very much like us. If it's a strong brand, it's going to carry some capitalization behind it. And if we take the PT company and we're trying to build a new product, it is not a crazy idea, because the brand is worth of something. And the same with the team. This ability of a company to build new products and to build something which will be addressing pain points of the industry. It is something, it's a separate value, and this separate value will overlap. But if you single out the team and say, okay, let's do it from the zero, like from scratch, the company will be able to build yet, I mean, our team will be able to build yet another company. They can do it.
Скорее, конечно, история некой как бы там квадрата над продуктами, брендами команды, да, но здесь умение генерить бизнес — это некое такое продолжение, которое даже там не совсем про команду. Во-первых, там должен там благоволить рынок.
The ability to generate business is not about the team and your products. There should be a conducive market with a high growth potential, and of course you need to have a little bit of entrepreneurship in you and so on. So there are a lot of components.
Форме там равно плюс-плюс и все.
It's not a simple formula like this plus this equals that. But nonetheless, we understand that people will look at us, that will be exposed. And if anyone's interested in working on the industrial standard, just like colleagues have said, please engage with us. We don't want to be defensive. We don't hold kind of the quote-unquote copyright on this. So when we get a board of interested parties who are interested in developing this standard, who can get to a shared opinion, then I think we could start this debate within the companies that participate. Any questions from the floor? Any questions from our online audience?
Там вопросов нет. Если вдруг у кого-то есть вопросы, там просто через руку.
From the bot, you can raise your hand and please wait for the microphone. Yes, go ahead.
Как бы вы оценили вот внутри компании
What is your assessment?
принятие среди сотрудников, не имеющих финансового бэкграунда?
Do your non-financial background people accept and understand these management accounts matrix? How do you talk to your non-financial people in these terms? Well, that's an interesting story. We have 2,600 people, and about 1,500 of them are shareholders, so we've been lucky there. Our CEO, of course, is a shareholder, and developers are our shareholders as well. So such companies, they talk in different terms. So when you talk to them about the future of the company, they respond not just like hired managers, like hired hands, but they have a stake in this. Our management accounts a couple of years ago started as, people asked us, so what is it you're doing? What are your goals? Whether you achieve those goals? What are the metrics to tell us whether you achieve those goals and so on? So all these, what we call management accounts, it's actually a business-like thinking style. We try to listen to our own people. We try to aggregate this thinking into some analytical matrix, and that is actually how these matrix came about. Your objective is this. These matrix show you how well you are achieving this objective. So these matrix talk about cross-functional problems and so on. The matrix that we show in public, kind of everyone agrees on them, everyone shares, everyone speaks in that language. However, there are about 100 matrix inside which we're not exposing to the public because we don't want to overwhelm people with things they don't understand. We could do that, but we could first expose those matrix to our colleagues who understand. But answering your question, this is our company, this is how our company lives and breathes. This is our common language. This is what we show to our own people, starting from aggregated matrix to detailed matrix. So we've been lucky here, and I think that's the story about this non-classical approach. Okay, and the second question. I don't want this to sound like plain vanilla, but publicity is is a huge burden. I've been 25 years in audit and 10 years in investment. Everyone who is thinking about an IPO, but then they start thinking, so there will be a week of euphoria after an IPO, but then I will have to live with that. So what is the burden? What are the risks? What are the challenges? What are the costs of publicity and exposure? Publicity can't be easy. Well, it is true that publicity can't be easy. Of course, you always want to cut the corners from A to B. What we've been talking about, it's not an easy and quick story. You need to agree with everyone else within the company, financiers, with market people with IT people. It's very difficult. And you need to speak to the outsiders about that in a way everyone agrees, and way that auditors would support. This is a long story, and this is a burdensome story. It is true. However, this is the fundamentals of our future success. Our management accounts now mean that we can more vigorously move toward a shared goal. Same language, same drivers, and it is much easier to talk about strategy and budgets. You don't have to explain in different languages to different people how to do things. You have invested in this. You have exposed the market to your approaches, and you have engaged in the first dialogue. All the subsequent dialogues are much easier. We don't want to overstate our market cap. We don't want our market cap to be understated as well, because if it goes over the top, it will fall. Right? And the stories you've been talking about when people invest in one company, then in another, and lose money on the way. So I think this is a story about a long-term strategy. And the long-term strategy is what you said yesterday you should do today and tomorrow. And the next generations of people who are brought up within the company, they need to share this too, and they need to continue in that behavior too. This is why we are promoting this. Standards, we want people from Astra, we want people from other companies also to get that and to tell everyone else that this is the right thing to do. It is burdensome, but this is our investment in our own growth for the future. Just a small remark.
Со своей стороны хочу сказать, что на самом деле для нас
and a comment on publicity. Publicity to us is self-discipline.
Теперь это просто вот как дисциплина.
Previously, you could do things the lazy way.
Вот ты должен, наверное, ключевое слово, да?
But now the key word is you're expected to do certain things, you're expected to follow certain rules, you're expected to follow certain procedures, and that actually does help greatly in instituting a new corporate culture. So it is not a restriction, I would think. I think transparency is a growth driver. And people look at you and you're not a black box to them. You are a transparent box to them. And I think from that point of view, it's the right thing to do. Yes, we have a question in the floor. Hello, I'm Ksenia, CEO of Traveline. We're not as big as you, but we also work in the IT industry. We are making a decision of whether we will move, or we will go public. We are introducing IFRS, we are introducing this methodology, so I would be very grateful if someone told us what do we need to think first as we're just starting this journey.
Ну, мне кажется, первое, что можно сделать, это попробовать.
Well, the first thing to do is to try to calculate these four metrics that we have offered. That's the simplest thing.
Мы поделимся обязательно
You can talk to us. We can share our experience
публичности и по стандарту.
on issues of publicity, on issues of the standard. So we're open to this.
У вас вопрос был больше о том, что вам учили.
Well, your question was, what do you need to take into account as you're preparing for an IPO, if I understand right?
Но глобальной целью является последующее IPO.
Your IPO is your global goal? Well, our global goal is to standardize the statements and reporting, and IPO is an option. Well, my humble opinion of a person who's been in audit for 25 years and who has seen a lot of companies introducing this, I have not seen anyone who has failed. This is a very straightforward technical process, which is a function of your team, of your qualification, and of the buy-in of your management. What's the benefit of this process, and what not to do? You should not treat IFRS statements as a plugin for purely reporting purposes, while keeping the old management process. Colleagues are talking about a very right thing. They did not resist the introduction of IFRS. They tried to bring their own matrix closer to IFRS. And if this is not possible, they invent something new. They want it to be manageable. Because only when you start managing a company through these matrix, you only become able to forecast them. If your IFRS are a side story to you, you will never learn to talk to banks, to analysts, to the market through forecasts which you can defend, and most importantly, which you can make true. Start to live in this and introduce the IFRS philosophy in your management. It shouldn't be just a paper story. Yes, I can echo this. The most challenging thing for us was to explain to product teams, to the top management, that IFRS is not a plugin. It's not something you just give to the accountants and they'll calculate it. IFRS will require your management processes to change. How you collect information, how you calculate matrix, how you honor your deadlines. This is how you think, how you look at your own work. So there was an educational process. Old ways are gone. We have to change something that happens in your head. And I can give you a very, very simple advice. Just don't want to pretend. Don't pretend. If you say something about yourself to the market, you need to be that exactly thing. It is a utopian thing, to pretend to be better than you are. You have a business, you have a track record, you have results, and so on. You need to tell your story, but you have to have an internal agreement that you have one story about yourself. Your commercial director, your CFO, your marketing director could speak to different audiences, and they, of course, will speak about their own things, but they should just transmit the same story, and the important thing is that this story should be about something real. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, I'd like to thank everyone who was listening and everyone, especially who was talking. We will have a 10-minute break. And I'd like to thank you all, and I'd like to invite you to further dialogue about the industry standard. Thank you very much again, and goodbye.